xây tương thân tình trong đạo Phật, tùy khác màu nhưng một tôn sư. Hôm nay đây cùng nhau họp mặt, quyết noi theo đường Phật giáo Hoàng Dương.
Nam mô A Di Đà Phật. Con là Đại đức Ấn Minh, xin cung kính chào chư tôn đức giáo phẩm, Đại đức Tăng Ni và quý Phật tử. Hôm nay con có duyên sự làm show chung với sư chú Ấn Tri. Chú Ấn Tri là sa di của chùa Diệu Pháp và cùng là sư đệ của con. So, welcome everybody. We're back again with this week's episode. And so to start off, Ấn Tri, you want to ask the question?
Yeah, sure. So last episode we were talking about how to have purpose and to develop all this knowledge, but then recently, as we both were reading during our Wednesday English Dharma programs, was that knowledge isn't everything. And so the other thing with knowledge must be practice. And so my question to you, Tagaman, is can you explain why practice is more important than seemingly knowledge of the Dharma itself?
Yes. Well, before we can start, there's a variety of ways I can explain this, because our ultimate goal as a Buddhist is to create and understand ourselves. Basically, knowing how the mind works, seeing everything as it is, observing the sensations, all the feelings, and learning how to respond rather than to react. And when you start to do all of that, when you start to practice the Dharma, what happens is that you enter what you call concentration of mind. And through concentration of mind, you observe all the phenomenons, all the sensations, all the feelings, everything, all of the greed, anger, and ignorance. And by observing it, you start to purify yourself through intense meditation, something that I will go into in deeper details in the later episodes. But what we have to understand here is our ultimate goal is to develop wisdom. And only when we practice is we are able to develop wisdom. Because wisdom is within us, but because of greed, anger, and ignorance, it covers up the wisdom. It's kind of like we have a light bulb, but it's covered up in dust, debris, and mud, and all these things that's covering the light. So even though you have a really light light bulb, but if it's covered in all these materials, the light can't shine through. We have the Buddha nature, but it's covered in greed, anger, and ignorance. But to answer your question, what's more important is that we have to understand the importance of practice. Because we all know how to lose weight and eat rice. To be honest, everyone knows. We drink more water, eat half of what we usually get, and we spend more time doing cardio or walking a mile a day, every single day, and you'll see that your weight will start to lose. You'll lose your weight, and everything, your lifestyle will start to change. But in order for you to lose weight, you have to put in the practice. You will not lose weight if you just read and memorize what Google taught or what any of the fitness book. You have to put in the practice. And so for Buddhism, it's very important that we put in the practice rather than just memorizing. And there's a story in the Dhammapada, chapter 1, verse 19 and verse 20. It basically said of the story of the two friends.
Yeah.
And the story of the two friends here basically said that there are two noble families, and there are two bhikkhus. One of the bhikkhu was a master of the Tipitaka, which is the sacred text. And being the master of the sacred text, he memorized all of the Vinayas, he memorized all of the Nikayas, and he was able to teach what he's learned to hundreds of bhikkhus, actually 500 bhikkhus. And he was the leader of 25 groups of bhikkhus, teaching them the Tipitaka. However, he doesn't practice what he teach. On the other hand, there was another bhikkhu who was an older bhikkhu, but he only knows a specific amount, just 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 5 teachings of the Buddha. Yet, those 5 things that he's learned, he puts into practice. And therefore, when he put into practice through insight meditation and analytical insight, he was able to attain arahatship, which is the first level in enlightenment. Well, so in the story, the bhikkhu, who was a master of the Tipitaka, came up to the other bhikkhu and said, he thought that the other bhikkhu doesn't know anything. But in fact, he was an arhat. And so he wanted to test the other bhikkhu by asking questions. And so during this time, the Buddha saw that if this bhikkhu, this learned bhikkhu, were to ask questions to test the other bhikkhu, he would be reborn into the lower realms. And so the Buddha came and basically talked to both of them. The Buddha came and asked questions about the jhanas, which is like the levels of concentration and the levels of understanding the self and observing the sensations, and what kind of magas, which is the fruit that you would get if you were to practice the teachings. So the learned bhikkhu, when the Buddha asked, couldn't answer any of those questions, because in order for you to understand what the Buddha said, you would have to put it into practice. On the other hand, when the Buddha asked the other bhikkhu what all the questions, because he put into practice, and because he attained arahatship, he was able to answer all the questions. And so the Buddha gave praise to the bhikkhu who put it into practice, and not a single word of praise was given to the learned bhikkhu. What this story says is that the most important thing is to put into practice. There's no way and you would achieve enlightenment if you were just to learn the teachings. You have to learn the teachings, and on the other hand, you have to put it into practice. And so that's why it's very important that in order for us to develop wisdom, there has to be a sense of practice.
Could you explain then, because some of us think enlightenment is too far, and so the practicing part, do you also feel it's with us into normal everyday lives, like if we're a student or a worker in society, the use of practice, how could we benefit as regular people instead of monks? Because if we don't have time to meditate and reach enlightenment, is there a way to practice within every one of our lives too? Like, what should we practice to be a better scholar or a better businessman or anything like that?
Okay. That's an excellent question. And to answer your question, it would have to be mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Because when you practice mindfulness, when you practice concentration of the mind, when you start to practice meditation in a sense that observing your breath, for example, observing your breath, you can do it at any time of the day. A lot of people have the notion that I have to leave out a specific time frame, like 15 minutes or half an hour, in order to practice meditation, and therefore putting my practice of Buddhism into practice. It goes beyond that. Because Buddhism is not just a practice that you give yourself in a lot of time frame in the day. Buddhism is a lifestyle. And our lifestyle is developing the mind and understanding how the mind works. And so when we put into practice and developing our mind, we gain mindfulness. And through the mindfulness, you're mindful of everything that you do. When you eat, you know you eat. When you drive, you know you drive. When you walk, you know you walk. When you work, you know you work. When you're at school or you're studying, you know you're studying. And you use this meditation of the breath to always be in the present moment. Because when you're in the present moment, you're not stressing about the things that has happened in the past, and you're not stressing about the things that might happen in the future. You're focused on the most important moment, which is the now moment. In the now moment, you're able to change how your future would be. Everything that you are experiencing right now at home, everything you're experiencing right now in your life are based on all the decisions and thought process and words you said and actions you did in the past. Led you up to this moment. But therefore, in this moment, if you were to focus all the words, the thoughts correctly, the words correctly, the actions correctly, it develops into a habit, then you know exactly how your future would be. You're in the process of shaping your future. So if you want to become a successful business person, a successful student, or successful anything, in any endeavor, once you practice mindfulness, you understand how powerful this is, and you use it to create opportunities, and you use it to have solutions for your obstacles. We all have problems, but those who know how to overcome the obstacles know how to be successful in life. But unfortunately, we don't have much time. Let's have the commercial break, and then we'll come back to continue the discussion. Thank you so much.
世間吞定中咬墳。